Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show, concluding it similarly to how we started today's show, talking about the Jets and their decision to fire Robert Saleh. We couldn't go too far into the week without talking about their performance in London. It was the first international game of 2024, and it went to the Minnesota Vikings this time around, this past Sunday, when they defeated the Jets 23-17 over there in London. Minnesota stays undefeated, obviously, at 5-0, and the Jets lose their second consecutive game. They are now 2-3. And I, unfortunately, couldn't watch this game too much because I had to work, unfortunately. So, looking at it afterwards and watching a bit of it at work as well, it was not such a dominant win, if you would say that, based on how, everything all panned out. You talk about the 3 interceptions to Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings offense being what it is and defeating the Texans, beating the Packers as well. It felt like, 23-17 didn't do it justice, or it wasn't a score that you'd expect from an undefeated team facing the Jets and all the troubles that they were facing as well. So the score was a little bit deceptive, but I think it just felt like a performance where the Vikings just really weren't up to par. And I think Justin Jefferson mentioned something like that in his post-game press conference as well. But looking at the performances as well, you could kind of tell, Sam Darnold was 14 of 31 for 179 yards. He threw an interception, no touchdowns for him, passing-wise. No real production from the rushing game this time around. Aaron Jones, I believe, got hurt in this game, and Ty Chandler didn't add too much after that. Both of them combined had about 30 touches in this contest, and Justin Jefferson had 6 receptions for 92 yards, and no touchdowns in this game. The only one that had like this sort of production out of the receiving group, and even still, you want to talk about Justin Jefferson. There was the past games where other guys stepped up, and offensively it just looked like, credit to the Jets defense as well, that the Vikings were a little bit off in this game. So that didn't stop them from winning, obviously, because Aaron Rodgers, you look at it from the other side, 29 of 54 on the day, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions on the day. Rushing, for as non-existent as the Vikings were, the Jets as well, pretty much not there. 14 total carries, 36 total yards between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Insane. And Garrett Wilson, he had a solid day. 13 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. Probably, if I'm not mistaken, his best game so far this year with Aaron Rodgers, but it obviously wasn't enough. And now we look at this game and how it all kind of unraveled pretty quickly for the Jets, right? Because the Jets, they forced the first turnover of the game by strip sacking Sam Darnold and recovering it. And now it was 3-0 Minnesota at that point, and Minnesota responded with 2 consecutive interceptions on Aaron Rodgers after that. And it was first it was the pick 6 by Alex Van Ginkel, which made it 10-0, and then the following drive, Minnesota got another interception on Aaron Rodgers. It was Cameron Bynum, where Aaron Rodgers kind of overthrew a pass intended for Garrett Wilson. It was a pretty ambitious pass, if I'm going to be honest. There was a lot of Vikings players there, and he would kind of try to throw it over the first defender and have it landed between both of them, but he clearly sailed it, and it fell right into the hands of Cameron Bynum. And Minnesota and the Jets really couldn't take advantage of these chances because Minnesota failed to convert on a 4th down right after that, going back to the point of them not really being on their A game on the offensive side of the ball. Then the Jets also failed on another 4th down on that following drive, and both finally scored a touchdown towards the end of the game, or towards the end of the half, I should say, making it 17-7 at that point. And then in the second half, it was kind of more of the same. It was pretty rough, honestly. The first 8 drives, 2 of them were field goals, and everything else was just pretty much punts after that. So the score only ended up being at 10-20 at that point, and it felt like something needed to break the monotony of this game at that point from what I saw afterwards. And the Jets were the ones to kind of fill that void, right? They got that interception on Darnold and they scored a touchdown after that, so they made it 20-17. And now you're thinking, are the Jets really going to pull this off after Aaron Rodgers has thrown 3 interceptions and the Vikings, could we see their first potential loss here, right? But that effort fell short after Stephon Gilmore had another interception, the final and third interception on Aaron Rodgers to seal it, and the Vikings end up winning this game 23-17, like I mentioned. And Minnesota, again, for as pedestrian as they were on offense, considering what we saw out of them through the first 4 weeks, the Jets just made too many mistakes, it felt like, to overcome, right? You're not going to win a game with Aaron Rodgers first throwing 3 interceptions, obviously, right? But the 54 times throwing the ball, 40-year-old quarterback, going to be 41 in December, insane. Probably the craziest thing I've mentioned on here, right? For as much as we talked about Deshaun and the Browns not benching him, the own Jets talking about are actually firing their head coach, Robert Saleh. Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball 54 times might be the craziest thing that we've gone over today. Because it's not only that game that he throws 54 times. Last game he threw it 42 times in what was basically like a hurricane in MetLife. So that's about like 96 times, if I'm not mistaken, if my math is correct, over the last 2 games. And like, this isn't 2012 Aaron Rodgers. This isn't 2015 3-time MVP Aaron Rodgers, right? We're talking about good quarterback still, but 40 years old. You can't have him throwing this much. Obviously, it can't happen, and it's not even only that. It's the fact that they're not even using their running backs for whatever reason. Like I mentioned, in this game, Braylon Allen and Breece Hall, I think, combined for, what was it, like 36 yards between the both of them, and they touched the ball 14 times total between both of them. And in that first half, what was it? It was like 10-3 in the first half going into it, and actually 17-7. But even still, you're not down like 3 scores or whatever. You could have still ran the ball, and I just don't understand that. Combined with Aaron Rodgers throwing it over 50 times, it doesn't make sense, honestly, and especially against this defense, right? Because it's too many throwing opportunities to not make a mistake against a great defense. And the Vikings defense has arguably been the best defense in the entire year so far. Huge credit to Brian Flores as well because of that. But knowing how good they were and how Brian Flores likes to bring a lot of pressure, obviously, as well, to just have Aaron Rodgers sitting back there and Brian Flores just teeing off after him, blitz after blitz, especially in that second half, you can't have your 41-year-old quarterback get hit that much, obviously. So it's too many opportunities for this great defense to not take advantage of a couple, and they did. They turned Aaron Rodgers over 3 times. I forget how many times they sacked him, but they really got some good licks on him there in the second half, and he's dealing with a sprained ankle now. He got hit a couple harder times afterwards as well, and you can't throw it this much. It's too easy for opposing defenses to know that you're not going to run the ball, and to just send blitzes on an immobile quarterback is just a recipe for failure right at this point. And it adds on to the idea of firing Robert Saleh. This idea, this scheme that they have going in New York, it feels too, maybe not predictable, but too stagnant, where there's not enough deception, where opposing defenses kind of know that Aaron Rodgers is just going to sit back there. He's going to try and pick you apart. And if you get to him, there's a good chance you're going to sack him because he can't move that well anymore. So with that all being the case, I like Aaron Rodgers in this situation in New York. I thought that it was going to work a lot better than this, obviously. And I just felt like the Jets were going to be better prepared to help him out as much that he needed to at this point in his career. Again, he's not the same old Aaron Rodgers. Yes, he was going to be the final piece of the puzzle, but it doesn't mean that he's the entire puzzle, right? He's not every single piece of it. He can't do everything or the majority of it on offense, and I feel like something's not really going right on the offensive side of the ball, which is leading to these underwhelming performances that we see, and it's weird because we saw them. I mean, I guess it's not weird because they beat the Patriots and they're not going to be good this year, obviously. So maybe that was the anomaly, right? Where we thought the first couple of games were these get rid of the rust anomaly sort of games. Maybe we were wrong, and the game against the Patriots was the anomaly, and maybe we're going to see more of these performances going forward. That's the kind of idea and narrative that you have to change with this organization, with this offense going forward. And it's not the ideal situation, obviously, to be in, but after this loss, it's hard to get worse, obviously, after this, and with the firing of Robert Saleh, obviously, it's not going to make it any easier. Now it's really going to be all on Aaron Rodgers, and you can't have the pressure be all on him and rely on him 100% to do everything, right? The Jets have to help him out a little bit. Their defense is playing well, but we need to see more from that offense, and I don't know if Nathaniel Hackett's going to change or Aaron Rodgers is going to change the game plan, but something definitely needs to evolve to get better results. It's not over by any means. They're not done or anything like that, but you need to see more because of the fact that you're still in the race for the division, and the Bills on that point aren't playing great overall. So it's still there. It's still there, and you can learn from this, obviously. And Garrett Wilson, hopefully this propels him to perform better. So it's not completely over, but the Jets have to move with a little bit more urgency now, right? That one guy already lost his job. Maybe somebody else could be next after that. So a tough loss for them. The Vikings stay perfect, and that's where we'll finish this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's show. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. To check out more of the Chip Shot Football podcast, tune in to the Podcast Network channel and the Sports Network channel on YouTube to catch more coverage and topics around the NFL in a variety of different ways. And lastly, don't forget to tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more storylines, debates, discussions around everything in the NFL week to week of the regular season. Thanks again for watching. I've been your host, Manny Maradiege. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow to talk some more about the NFL.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to